Merry Christmas, my true love gave to me. Something I've been scared to start.
It's a really nice painterly brush to begin carving in with shapes of value. And then in your layers, just make sure you're on your painting layer. And then I'm going to bring my brush size up a little bit. And then I just want to select a basic skin color here and just start.
Let's get more of a mid-tone instead of that light color. It's better to get a richer tone for these base colors, I find. And then here, I'm seeing this shadow shape. All of this is grouping into shadow. So I'm just going to very quickly start establishing that there's a light side and there's a shadow side. And obviously the placement is not accurate at all, but we're putting something down so we have something to build from. Then her neck is going to come down like this. Here I'm picking up this color for the hair. See this nice little swing that happens? It's like the number 9 almost. So that's the swing and flow I'm going to try and capture throughout this whole piece. And in here it gets super dark, so let's go in with that now. Don't be afraid to get that dark in there, because that's how you're going to start establishing your values. Don't be shy with these dark values. Sometimes we can be so timid with the paint, so that we never get anywhere with the painting. But if you boldly put in your darkest dark value, that'll help push you forward. Now moving on to the scarf, notice that even though it's a white scarf, it's not actually white. It's a gray mid-tone. So a quick note about the color picker and my thoughts on it. I actually learned about color originally by using soft pastels and oil paint. So I feel okay about using the color picker because I feel like I have that background knowledge and this is just a tool for me to get where I'm going faster. But if you don't want to use the color picker, then by all means don't use it. Make your best guesses for color and go from there. Use this as a color study if you want to. There's this little break here separating shirt from skin. This is where all her neckland is. And it's so dark in there. And what I'm doing that you can't see that I'm doing is I'm squinting my eyes down at this piece because I want to be able to see the value structure. There's a very clear value structure that's happening. Let me just go ahead and put in that dark right now. So all this goes dark, so I'm just going to go for it. There's no point holding back in this beginning stage, so just go for it. You've invested only a few minutes in this so far, so put those colors down on the canvas. So then here in the back, this value is a bit darker than over here. So I'm picking up this darker value because that's going to pop really nicely against the light of her scarf. So something else you can look at when you're placing this stuff is negative space. So real quick, let me add a layer on top here and look at this negative space with you. Actually, let me grab this brush. It's a little easier. So what we want to do is look at the negative space. So when I'm placing her on the canvas, I'm thinking about this shape here. This general shape. And I don't mean her, I mean this negative shape behind her. I'm thinking, how can I draw that shape? Since this is just a random abstract shape, it's less precious to us than a person. So it's therefore easier to draw it in its exactness without your brain saying, hey, I know that, that's a face, it looks like this, and then drawing something that looks like a potato. But really, observing and drawing the negative space instead of the subject themselves can make placing them on the canvas so much easier. So when I'm placing her on the canvas, I'm thinking about painting that shape, not her, the background. So let's delete that, and back on the painting layer, let me grab the 6B brush again. Now that we've taken a look at the negative space, how can we place this a little better? Well, I'm noticing that I gave too much gray background on the left. So the face needs to plunge forward a little more. And I'm noticing already that I've drawn this shoulder way too low. So I'm going to have to think all the way across here and draw the shoulder. So it's going to be more about right here. And as a result, that chin is about right there, I'd say maybe. And then here with this negative space, my space is a little too large. So I'm going to just go like that for the moment. And again, the shoulder needs to be pulled up because I'm seeing here, if I go here, bring a line straight across, it's more about there. Tip of the shoulder is more about here. I'm seeing her head could be rounded out, so I'm going to grab one of these mid-tone oranges and add that up here. So I'm shifting to painting the positive shapes right now, but not without considering and observing that negative space. Okay, so everything's still in blob land. Let's consider where this cut happens, between the scarf and the dark value of her hair. So I'm just going to kind of line up here and just drag my hand across. And it swoops around like this. So any chance you get to find a rhythm or something beautiful or flowy in your piece, grab onto that. Here we have this hair again, and it pulls from here. And then here, that hair pops into light. So we're not going to think about hairs. We're thinking about shapes still. So this is just a blob of light. So right here, this has more darkness in here. And then it warms up a bit right here. The cylinder of her neck is right here. There's the cylinder of her neck kind of going into her chest. So this is her chest, and it's a bit darker. So I'm going to darken that up, so we can kind of start to feel that plane change. This is going to be the neck. And as we can see, it's pretty sharp right there, and soft on the other side. So it's sharp right here, and this brush is perfect for this. And it's softer over here. And right here, we have another little shadow. And I don't want to shy away from it because that's an essential part of this lighting scenario. So I'm going in now, and I'm just going to put in that little darkness. Another thing I want to grab onto is this ear. So I'm going to grab the darkness of that ear, just kind of float it over, okay? Float it on over, and place that. So this is where that ear is going to land. And I want to get this part in the light a little bit. So right around there is the ear. And then here again, now you can see these shadows. And we're not going to be scared to paint them as they really are, since we already got other dark values up on the canvas. So this is an important little part of the neck to help find the cylinder of the neck. So we're going to put that in right here. Now looking at these colors, I'm just checking and comparing the values of the neck. And if you look at the loop, you can see I haven't gone nearly dark enough on the neck value compared to the reference. So I'm going to grab this darker color right here, and I'm going to color in all of this now, because this should get a darker value. And then up in this cheekbone, we have that color. Let's start carving that in as well. We don't want to shy away from these tones, because if we do, we're never going to get the light. So then here, let's see about a richer tone for the skin. So if you color pick from the skin, don't pick the highlight zone. That's not going to be a good base color. So we want to grab something a bit richer in tone so that the highlights eventually will really have room to sing. So then here, this is going to be a little halftone color change, and eventually we're going to work into this cheekbone. So here, the headscarf wraps around a little more, and it comes out a bit more. But I'm keeping in mind that negative space, so I'm going to cut back in. And I can see I probably need to add a little more scarf here. Now let's go ahead and flip this. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to press flip horizontally. This is a great way to change up your perspective. It reveals mistakes. Since you're not used to seeing it in this view, you'll see it with a fresh eye. So what I'm seeing is this space right here is just too big compared to this space. It's slight, but it's definitely different. So I see I just need to pull her face out a bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that out the way it needs to be. As soon as you see something's off, go ahead and make that change, because it's easier to move things around in this beginning stage of the piece than it will be later on in the piece. And I'm seeing she has a lot more hair here, so I'm going to put that dark shape in. And here's a nice transition color here. So now I really want to squint down. This part of the scarf here is definitely a darker value. So I want to get the different values of light and shadow on this headscarf. That's a nice pretty little turn in that cloth, so we want to make sure we grab onto that. This cloth is turning a bit more than I have it, so let's just start to get that little bit of turn around the head. Because all of this needs to turn and conform to the roundness of the head. So something quite challenging about this piece is the tilt of her head. This is not an easy reference, but we're going to keep at it as this type of challenge is a great learning opportunity. So I noticed that getting darker, so I just want to make sure it gets nice and dark. And here I'm just grabbing this dark color and pulling in the next zone. Something that we want to consider is how we're seeing a little bit of the underside of her jaw. So I'm drawing a little to try and convey that. So now I'm just painting a tone on where the masseter muscle would be. And I see this light value shape here, so I'm trying to put that in now. Here this cheekbone is a bit bigger, so I want to put that in better. And now let's go ahead and turn on another version. We don't want to get too caught up in the details. So uncheck reference to reveal reference blurred. Just make sure you keep your painting layer selected though. And let's go ahead and try working from that for a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this again, and we're going to get going on this. So what I see here is, look at this blob of color on her nose. It's so simple. It's just a turn around the head. Because all of this needs to turn and conform to the roundness of the head. So something quite challenging about this piece is the tilt of her head. This is not an easy reference, but we're going to keep at it as this type of challenge is a great learning opportunity. So I noticed that getting darker, so I just want to make sure it gets nice and dark. And here I'm just grabbing this dark color and pulling in the next zone. Something that we want to consider is how we're seeing a little bit of the underside of her jaw. So I'm drawing a little to try and convey that. So now I'm just painting a tone on where the masseter muscle would be. And I see this light value shape here, so I'm trying to put that in now. Here this cheekbone is a bit bigger, so I want to put that in better. And now let's go ahead and turn on another version. We don't want to get too caught up in the details. So uncheck reference to reveal reference blurred. Just make sure you keep your painting layer selected though. And let's go ahead and try working from that for a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this again, and we're going to get going on this. So what I see here is, look at this blob of color on her nose. It's so simple. It's just a simple little blob. And we're not going to make a big deal about it. We're just going to go like that. There's that little blob. Then here we have another little blob, right? This little blob right here. It's not an eye, it's a blob. So we're going to go over here and just put... So uncheck reference to reveal reference blurred. Just make sure you keep your painting layer selected though. And let's go ahead and try working from that. For a bit. Here this cheekbone is a bit bigger, so I want to put that in better. And now let's go ahead and turn on another version. We don't want to get too caught up in the details. So uncheck reference to reveal reference blurred. Just make sure you keep your painting layer selected though. And let's go ahead and try working from that for a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this again, and we're going to get going on this. So what I see here is, look at this blob of color on her nose.
She goes on to say that you use the blurred image, and instead of trying to do features of a human being, you draw shapes. So before the transition slide, you heard her say you see the blob on her nose. That's not a nostril, that's a blob on her nose. So essentially that was a circle, and you just keep going from there, and then you unblur it a little bit more, unblur it a little bit more, till you get into those details that actually form a face. But if we focus on shapes instead of actual features, then it'll help us in the long run. And as you can see, I'm looking at her shirt right now, but I actually was working on more so like features, and I think that's what really threw me off. I was working on actual features instead of just a blob for the nose, or a highlight for the nose, or a shadow for the nose, instead of the actual nose, because it doesn't look like her nose. It just looks like a nose I created. Or her lips. It doesn't look like her lips, it looks like lips I created. So this is all going to be a process. I never said I was going to like start off and know. Hopefully you guys like this video. I did add her to the Let It snow collection. She's actually the first piece of my leather snow collection. I will be making some old pieces snow in the winter season, just because why not? Really, like I've been stuck. I've been stuck on what I should create next. So why not take something that's already created and put a little frosty, put a little scarf, put a little midden and muffins and stuff like that. So that's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna show y'all the TikToks and whatnot that I made, the little reels that I made, because they cute. Hopefully you guys like this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Go check out the original video that I was following, because she makes good art, and if I would have followed along with her process, I probably would have made it way, you know what I'm saying? I probably would have made it way far, and it would have looked exactly like, at least close to what I was trying to create, instead of a bootleg. But hopefully you guys like this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Video linked in the description, and my art Instagram is also linked in the description. Hopefully you guys like this video. See you guys later.
Are you listening? In the lane, snow is glistening, a beautiful sight. We're happy tonight, walking in a winter wonderland.